So there's this great part in the film as we're driving into New York in '64, and Cassidy's driving, and he's really excited. New York, 120 miles, Chief. We're going to be there in 2 hours. Not a problem. Oh, look at this big red truck coming by, man. Can you see that? He's balling the Jack. Yes, indeed. And speaking of Jack, we're going to see Jack tonight. I guarantee if we don't see him tonight, we'll see him this week. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but I know Ginzy's in town, and we'll talk to Al, and Al will know where Jack is, and we'll get him together. 90 miles to go, 90 miles. We're going to get there today, folks. Here it is. The sun is shining, and we're on our way to New York. We're going to be there tonight, folks. So Cassidy, he's rapping constantly, and we're filming him, and he's doing this, and he's doing that, and he's got a microphone, he's grabbing the microphone, he's steering one hand, and steering with the other hand, and he's beating on stuff, and he's keeping time with the music, and he's doing all this stuff, and he's dancing around, and he's, you'd be talking to people like this, and you think he's not watching, but Cassidy does this thing when he's driving. He's got this great visual memory. He'll look down the road for maybe 1 second, and he'll take the whole picture, and he knows everything that's going on, and then he knows that he's got like a minute before he has to look again, because he's on no side roads, nothing to help, nothing to happen here. It's all straight, so he can turn around, he can start talking, and he's not paying any attention at all to where he's going. Everybody thinks, shit, he's not even watching, but then he'll do that. He'll take another look, and that's all it takes him. And he's got his next minute covered. He'll look around this way.
Ball the Jack!
Watching a ball the Jack, man. Watching traffic in the mirror. He's got a mirror out here, and he's going along, and he's talking like crazy. And dancing around, he's dancing the wheel, and he's doing this, and he's keeping time with the music, and everything's happening. And he takes another look, and he knows the road's clear. And so he'll turn around and he'll start talking. And then a little while later, he'll take another look, and he drives that way, all the way across the country. And at first you think, this guy's crazy. He doesn't even watch where he's going. He's driving this bus full of people, 60 miles an hour, well, 55 miles an hour. But I watched him, I realized he looks, and then he knows what's there. He's seen everything. He's seen the truck, he's seen the road, he's seen the side roads. If he sees a side road, he'll look again. Anybody on the side road? Nope, it's clear. And he does this, and he drove like that all the time. Always just, you take that look, and it's like he's taking a picture, and then he analyzes the picture.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. We're here with absolute legend on the farther bus, which is still in progress, but ready to hit the road next summer on the Everybody for President tour. Brother George Walker, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. It's great to be here. It's always a real pleasure.
It really is an honor. I just wanted you to go back and talk a little bit about Robert Hunter. We lost him this year, rest in peace, and he didn't live on Perry Lane, but he lived close enough to be touched by the avant-garde artistry of that time. I mean, would you consider him part of that original milieu of pranksterism?
Well, yeah, definitely so. I wish I had known Robert better. I never really got to know him. He wasn't playing in the band. And our connection with the Dead was Saturday night, essentially. The acid test every Saturday night, and they'd show up and we'd give them their $100.
Well, I just want to get this out on the table because people are already saying that my thesis is that without the original pranksters, there wouldn't be the Grateful Dead that we know today.
Well, I think that's really clear.
So let's break that down. Explain why that's clear to you.
I think it's because the thing that really solidified the Dead in people's minds was the acid test. That was what they were doing, was playing the music at the acid test, and taking acid and doing it. And the pranksters, we had our own little band.
Babs on electric bass?
Babs played bass, Kesey played the guitar, I played the drums.
Oh God, I'd love to see that footage.
There's damn little footage.
Was Hagen singing?
No, Hagen will not get in front of a camera or a microphone. He likes to be behind the camera. In fact, he likes to be hiding with the camera in his hand. He's like a candid camera guy. He's real camera shy. He won't get in front of a microphone or in front of a camera.
But you had your own band, plus you were tapping into this magic of LSD.
Oh yeah. It was all about. That was the whole point of the acid test, was taking acid and doing this stuff. What Kesey stated as what he was trying to do was break down that barrier, tear down the proscenium arch, remove the dividing line between performers and audience, where it was a total participation thing. He wanted everybody to be part of it and not just there experiencing, seeing it happen.
Dig.
Yeah, he wanted everybody to be doing it rather than just.
Was that concept developed in 62, 63 when you guys were in the hovels down? I know you weren't living down there, but this is the key. The Warlocks didn't exist until 65. You were on the road in 64. So when did you guys start this belief, this intersection, this collective intersection between the audience and the musicians, or the poets, or the magician, whatever? When did it start?
I don't think there was a point at which we said, okay, we're doing this. I don't think there was...
Right. Well, it wasn't conscious.
Like a birth moment. I think that this was an idea that was developing all along. I've said several times that the whole point of all of this stuff, everything, the whole 60s and all the stuff we've been doing, is about elevating our consciousness, raising our consciousness, raising our spirit to a higher level. It's about evolution, human evolution, evolution of the human mind. Without it, we're doomed, essentially. What humanity is doing today is not sustainable. We just simply cannot, it's not possible, continue down this road because the end of this road is the cliff. We go off the cliff.
It's consumption?
We've overconsumed, we've overpopulated. America consumes like a third of the world's resources. In 100 years, humanity has consumed like 90% of the world's natural resources in 100 years. We've been here 100,000. What are we going to do for the next 99,900 years? What are we going to do?
Yeah, but okay, but in 62, what was the paradigm that reflected this need for evolution?
We were young. We were exploring. We were aware that there was all this other stuff. We were starting to see stuff about drugs. Kesey had been through the drug experiments.
What year was that?
I think it was 1960.
60 at Menlo.
That he did. I'm not sure of that, but I think it was. 60.
I want to get, and then he brought some of that back. So you guys were dosing a lot in 62, 63.
I didn't take acid until 64. I ate peyote in December of 61.
Perry Lane, it snowed.
Yeah, it snowed that night.
But you didn't take acid till 64.
No, I didn't find any.
I thought Kesey wasn't bringing...
He had some LSD. He had a bunch of other stuff. He had more of the...
DMT or something?
DMT, that's another whole story. He had... The drugs that he was mostly dispensing to us were a couple of these MK Ultra designated things that we don't really know what they were. One of them was called IT-290.
Yeah.
And Sasha Shulgin found out what that was. It was kind of similar to ecstasy, but it was more psychedelic. And then there was the other one that was called MP14, and he found no record of it. He couldn't find out anything. He has no clue. He had no clue what it was.
But you were ingesting it anyway.
We were taking it. Oh yeah, and it was very psychedelic. Very MP14 was really fun. It was very hallucinogenic, very visual. And it was very uplifting of your spirit and your mood. So it was a lot of fun.
Let me ask you a question. So when you, how did your view of evolution change after these drugs? Or during the drug?
I think it developed as a result of that. I think it wasn't a thing like, aha, one of those moments.
Sure.
It was a growth thing. Just like evolution, one individual out of a population evolves, boom. But the whole population evolves, boom, then boom, and then boom, boom, and then boom, boom, boom. And slowly, the pioneers evolve, and then the followers, and it goes on and it develops. And we were just happened to be there kind of at the leading edge of this. Kesey talked a lot about the wave, the energy wave.
Break the wave down.
Of the 60s. And he said, we didn't create this. We get a lot of credit and a lot of blame, neither of which we deserve that much, because we didn't really make this happen. We sensed that it was happening, and we rode the wave like surfers. Now, I've drawn this analogy to surfers a lot because it's like that. These waves happen. Where they come from, I have no idea. It's a cosmic thing. I think that the universe somehow is evolving, just like individuals are evolving. And so these waves of evolution occur. It's not linear, straight line that we're just marching along toward higher consciousness. We're leaping, and then we stand around, look and see where we landed. And then we leap again, and we stand around for maybe a century, looking at where we landed, until we finally are at the next place, and then the next place. And there's no end goal, I don't think. I think that it's constant growth, energy, developing ourselves, and I don't think there's a limit. I think that we're just, and it may take us millions or billions of years. The current universe is what, 5 to 10 billion years.
Here's the thing. Babs name. You remember the day when Babs named you guys the Pranksters?
Yes.
But how long were you cultivating that spirit before that? Babs was in Vietnam. Kesey was marinating in the hovels. You were not in Perry Lane, but there's no way one day he was like, "Oh yeah, we're the Merry Pranks." That thing was cultivated. So when did that start?
I think it started differently for each of us.
Sure.
I don't think you can point at something and say, "Okay, this is what made that happen."
Because the fantasy I have is that
I know when it started for me, and with a little bit of Google, with very little Google, I could come up with the date. It was the day that the local newspaper announced that Robert Mitchum had been busted for pot. That was like 1948.
Who was Mitchum?
Robert Mitchum, the actor, the Hollywood actor.
So he got busted for weed.
He got busted for pot. He and a woman whose name I can't remember, and they did 30 days in jail. And everybody said, "Oh, his career's over," and it wasn't. He came back stronger than ever.
Wow.
But there was this mystique. I'm 8, 9 years old at this time when I read this big top of the newspaper banner headline in the Eugene Register-Guard, the local newspaper. Robert Mitchum arrested for marijuana. And I thought, what the heck is that? What's that about? I don't know if I'd ever even heard of marijuana at that time, but I realized that he was doing something that was
taboo,
prohibited,
yeah.
taboo, and he did it for a reason, and he was doing it, and it had some kind of effect, and it was about his mind in some way, and I knew I was able to discern that much of it, and it raised a curiosity in me that was the beginning of my interest in drugs, as something that does something to you that moves you to the next place in your mind. How I was aware of that, I have no idea.
But La Honda was at. I mean, I'm still. Yeah, so I mean, you guys were somewhat disparate. I mean, you weren't like. My vision is that you guys were palling around and experimenting together in '62, '63. I mean, but you're saying it was individual for everybody.
I think that everybody came to it from something.
The wave just happened.
Yeah. Perry Lane was always long before Keys. And these were the far-out explorative mind kind of people that were there. And so this place was a breeding ground for this. Kesey was always really interested in stuff of the mind. As a little kid, we were all going to movie shows, and they had these kid shows on Saturday at the theaters. We were all going to be entertained. Kesey was going to entertain. As a kid, he was doing magic shows. A little bit older, he was doing hypnosis shows, and so he was into all this stuff that was about how the mind works. He was a real pioneer in that. In a little later years, when we were around Perry Lane and then at La Honda, he was going off and meeting with people. Fritz Perls. What's the other guy's name? I can't think of his name right now. It'll come to me. Gerd Stern.
Gerd Stern.
Gerd.
Gerd.
He says, people mispronounce my name.
He's still with us.
Yes, he was. We did a great show in New York a couple of years ago together at the bitter end. It was just wonderful. We had a public reunion. We hadn't seen each other in 40 or 50 years, and we did a reunion on stage as part of our act, and it was just great.
Let me. This is important. Phil Lesh was hanging around Perry Lane.
Yes.
In 61 or 62?
No, I don't know. I didn't see him there.
I thought you said he was playing avant-garde trumpet out there.
That's what people tell me, yes.
Really? So they were, all types of artists were gravitating there.
Yes, because it was the scene. It had been the scene, and it was the scene. And Kesey was starting to see these people who were kind of psychological experimental types.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And he would bring back this stuff. And we would play these psychological games. We'd spin the bottle. We'd sit around in a circle in the floor in the La Honda house. We'd spin the bottle, and there'd be 8, 10, 12 of us sitting around in a circle and spin the thing. And there were two principal games that we played. One of them was the attention game. Okay,
what was that?
Whoever the bottle points to, everybody has to give them their undivided attention for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever we decided. And the other one was the power game. For 30 minutes, whoever had the bottle point to them was king. And they could order all their subjects around and do whatever they wanted. Take a hike in the woods and look at all the stuff. But these were about raising our consciousness. This was about getting ourselves into characters, into stages of consciousness that were different from just ordinarily doing what we do.
I dig.
And so Kesey was always seeking these kind of guru types of people that were into this stuff, gaining information, gaining knowledge, and coming and bringing that back. And so we were all on this quest that we couldn't have articulated at the time, I don't believe, but we were all about expanding our consciousness, raising our awareness of stuff. It was about awareness games. All these things were like awareness games. And Kesey was really, really into that, getting his gang, as we were, more aware, more sensitive, more alert to everything going on around me.
What was your impetus, aside from it just being available? The first couple of, they weren't official acid tests, but they were Sequel or in
Soquel. Yeah.
Soquel, okay,
Yep.
and then San Jose. Break those down, because those are below the radar. What was your impetus for actually? When did it coalesce that it was time for you to ingest LSD?
When my friend in Berkeley called me and said that he had some.
So you finally got your hands on some.
Yeah, I
okay.
got my hands on some. So when he called me that day, I immediately drove to Berkeley and got some from him, and brought it back to La Honda, and we ingested it. And meanwhile, Alaska fell apart. It was the day of the Great Alaska Earthquake.
And that was the day, 64.
64, March 27th, I think is the date, but around there. That just broke things open to a whole new level for me.
So Sequel and explain how that started, because that doesn't get a lot of press at all.
During the, in the fall of 64, after our bus trip, or in almost winter, I think it was November or December, we got busted at La Honda. 14 of us got rounded up, arrested, and taken to the jail in San Mateo.
For weed?
For a very small amount of weed.
And they were trying to use syringes to say you're using hard drugs, but you were actually for the film. That's what was in Babs's. We were arrested. That was in the court trial. But anyway, so you were hauled into jail. I'm sorry.
I don't remember anything about syringes. I don't remember any. There was never a trial, for one thing. There was never any actual evidence at trial.
Rohan.
What it really came down to was a hearing to quash the search warrant. That was the only real court procedure. Was this? It was a hearing with lawyers and prosecutors and all the defendants and everything, and a judge. And there was this hearing, the lawyers. There was this hearing whether or not the search warrant should stand. And if you could quash the search warrant, then we're all free.
And then after that, you guys said, well, Kesey had to take the hit, the fall for it, right? I mean,
when it finally came down to it, wasn't very long that they dismissed the charges against 9 of us. There were 14 altogether. And after that hearing, they dismissed the charges against 9 of us. And they held the charges against 5 people. Kesey, Paige Browning, who ended up taking the fall, those 2, Cassidy, Mike Hagan, and Jerry Anderson. And the reason they kept Hagan, Cassidy, and Anderson was they all had prior convictions.
Right.
2 or more. I don't know about Jerry. I know
Cassidy definitely had 2.
Cassidy had, nobody really knows how many if you count all his juvenile. Hagan had 2 or 3 minor pot convictions that never sent him to jail or anything. He just got off, but on some probation and stuff. But nonetheless, they were on the books. So they were all looking at long, hard time. And what they did, the DA, who was the prosecutor, he was using Cassidy, Hagan, and Jerry Anderson as leverage against Kesey. Who he wanted to convict was Kesey and Paige Browning, who was a known minor, small pot dealer around Palo Alto. You know, he'd hang out at St. Michael's Alley selling lids or
I did, yeah.
You know,
he was going to Mexico to get it.
Yeah. And so he was this minor character, but he was kind of a gangster-looking type guy. You know, didn't have a job. He was the kind of guy that the cops liked to bust. He was vulnerable. And so they wanted him because they knew he was doing shit and they couldn't bust him. They couldn't catch him at anything. So they wanted him and they wanted Kesey. So they leveraged him. They said, look, we're going to prosecute Cassidy, Hagan, and Anderson too if you don't take a plea. We're going to prosecute all these guys. And these guys are going to do a long time. These guys are maybe life in prison.
What? Life?
Cassidy could have done life in prison.
Life?
Yes. Hagan might have also. They were at least looking at years in prison. Cassidy had already done 2 years in San Quentin.
Right.
2 months and 2 days for 2 joints is the way he liked to say it. Proud, like his merit badge or something. That was his
I love it,
yeah.
dude. I love it.
He'd brag about that, like he bragged about other things. I remember him often. I don't know what the big deal is. I'm just a simple telepath. and another one he liked was he said, well, yeah, you know, when they first took me in, they had to go to up to Vacaville to the prison hospital for evaluation. He said the psychiatrist said I was just a harmless psychopath. He said I'm just a harmless psychopath. Never hurt a soul. You know.
So you had 3. The lawyers eventually said, Ken, can you take the hit for these cats? How did that work? Where they decided to take the hit for the guys with already the records?
It didn't work right away because they were still negotiating all that. A year later, when Kesey...
And they were out on bail? They weren't in jail?
They were out on bail.
Right.
Yeah, and a little over a year later, Kesey got busted again with Mountain Girl in San Francisco up on Margot St. Jamie rooftop.
Wow.
Or was it Stuart Brand's rooftop throwing rocks at... They were either on Stuart's rooftop throwing pebbles at Margot's window, or they're on Margot's rooftop throwing pebbles at Stuart's window. I can't remember which. But
was it loitering? I mean, what were they doing? What was wrong
with it?
They
were just hanging out.
Yeah, so they got busted for what?
Well, they were making all this... They were up on this roof, and they were making a commotion of sorts, and somebody called the cops. Nobody knows who, but the cops came and said, what's going on? There's something going on up there on that roof. And so they came, and they showed up, up the stairway or something, and they approached them from the roof side, not from the ground
Sure.
level. And there they were up on the roof, sitting there smoking pot. Kesey and Mountain Girl just sitting up there smoking a joint and giggling, and got busted. I guess there was a minor wrestling match. Kesey tried to throw a bag of weed off the roof, and they wrestled a little, and then, okay, enough.
So then how did that change the actual initial bust?
Well, then he had 2.
Right.
And that was just a couple of days before the Trips Festival in San Francisco, the big event that
and Longshoremen's Hall.
At the Longshoremen's Hall, the thing that Stuart Brand put together. He had a show called American East Indians, and they were one night. And the final big climax night, Saturday night, was the acid test with the Grateful Dead, and a couple thousand people.
A couple thousand people?
Well, probably 1,500, something like that. It was a big event.
Yeah,
a lot of people. It was
64?
No, that was 65.
65?
That was January 65.
Okay. So then after that, Kesey went...
Right after that, Kesey bolted because he knew that the jig was up, and he said, I don't want to take this fall. He'd been busted again, and that had not resolved at all yet.
He faked the suicide?
That's when they faked the suicide, and he went to Mexico with Ron Boise, and the sculptor. And Ron
Oh
Boise's
God,
friend.
yeah, that's right. Boise built the Thunder Machine.
Yes, the first Thunder.
The first.
Machine.
So
Yeah.
so then he left, and you guys recognized. Well, actually, Longshoreman was San Jose before that.
Yes.
All right. So those. I guess here's the point.
San Jose would have probably been. I haven't really gone through and written down dates and order of things, but San Jose was, I think, early December of 64, 65.
64.
Let me think about it. No, 65. It would have been 60. Yeah, because the acid test in Soquel at Babs' Spread was
Not an official acid test, but it was definitely.
well, according to Babs, not an official acid test. Everybody else thinks of it as an acid test.
Wow.
They advertise it as such. So
Can you pass the acid test?
yeah, so you can take it any way you want.
And you were hiring the Warlocks at the time for $105 a week.
Well, $100 a week we paid them. I don't know if we charged people at the first acid test in Soquel. We probably didn't. We did. I think we started charging $1 at, and I'm not sure of these details, at San Jose. We charged everybody $1. Ended up giving all the money to the guy whose house it was to hold it, and he kept it.
Yeah.
Never gave it back.
But you were bringing in the dead because they were a little bit better musicians. They were musicians. They were
musicians. They were a real band, and we wanted more stuff going on.
Yeah, right.
Than we were doing. This all started in the summer before that, in '65. We were back from our bus trip from the year before. We were working on the film. People were coming and looking at our preliminary screenings of the film on weekends.
Right.
We started doing these Saturday night events, and they kind of turned into a psychedelic show and tell. We would take acid, and people would do stuff. There was this little kind of a rise above the house in La Honda, the big flat space where the Thunder Machine was.
Oh.
And Kesey had big lights and stuff, and that became our stage, where the Thunder Machine was, and it was kind of a nice flat area on the side of the hill. It was right above the house. We could run a cord to it easily, put sound and lights and stuff there. And this was kind of our stage. And people would start coming, all the local psychedelic people. You might see Stuart Brand one week. You might see Bobber Ramdas, who wasn't Ramdas yet. He was
Richard Albert.
He was still Dick Albert.
Ginsberg, maybe.
Yeah, Ginsberg and Bobby show up. People like this would start showing up, and we'd be doing stuff.
But there was no expectations. If you wanted to play music, you could. If you didn't, you
just come and do something.
Right.
I feel like
Yeah, right.
And we would play some of these same kind of psychedelic little parlor games, like I was talking about. Again, it was all about just expanding our consciousness into further levels of stuff. But these Saturday night events were getting bigger and bigger, and more people, and more notorious. And then Kesey met the Hells Angels and invited them out for a weekend. And then another weekend, and then another weekend. And by now we're clear into the fall, and Kesey says, we're just going to get busted again. This is getting to be too outrageous, too notorious. As if this stays at my house, I'm going to be done. So we got to get this out of the house. We got to go somewhere else. And so then we said, well, let's do the next party at Babs's. And then somebody came up with this, Kesey came up with the idea, can you pass the acid test? Somebody did a little poster of it. And then the rest is documented history, more or less.
For people are asking, what is I was curious because some of the tape and footage was salvageable from the road trip.
Quite a lot, yeah.
Where can that be accessed, and what's the most memorable footage? Is it what you riffed on with Cassidy bellowing about going into New York City? We're only 90 miles away. I mean, what?
That's a really tough question because there are so many.
Is it available though anywhere?
Yes.
It is.
But I don't know exactly how to access it.
You don't know how to access it?
Here's what has happened, I believe.
Yeah.
Have you seen the film that
I don't watch TV. I only talk to you.
No, this wouldn't be on TV. Alex Gibney's film, the documentary. It was what did they call it? Magic Trip, about the bus trip. He essentially bought the film, or the rights to the film.
To the content, to the usable content.
Yes, and what they did is they took the film, all the original film, and they took it to UCLA film laboratories and restored it. and
Wow.
I think it's archived at UCLA, and they made prints, and some of it I think is probably digital video type prints rather than film prints. They made that movie of some of it. Zane has some of it. Zane would know. Zane Kesey would be the one that would really probably know best what the access to it is. But I've been told that if you want to use some of this, it's probably accessible. I know it's archived at UCLA.
You know, Walker, can you preview a little bit? We're on the farther bus. What is the plan for what is now a skeleton? I mean, just look at this bus is remarkable here. No floorboards.
Floorboards are easy.
Master Lasotsky, welcome. No,
I'm
it's
not going to do floorboards until we finish sandblasting. See, we've got this one middle section of the frame that we haven't sandblasted.
Unbelievable. I mean, farther. It's going farther. So, I mean, when this thing gets up and running, what is your intention?
My first intention is to go on the political tour this coming summer, 2020,
which would be like 3 months before the actual general election.
Election year. I want to be out. I want to be out on the road, campaigning everybody for president, and a president for everybody. Remember, decades ago, Wavy Gravy,
87, 88, yeah.
Wavy Gravy of the Hog Farm ran a campaign of nobody for president. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. He didn't get him elected. Well, we're going to take it a step farther, and we're going to run everybody for president, which is kind of a play on the fact that the Democrats are running almost everybody for president this year.
And Bloomberg jumping in and everybody.
But then the play on the words is everybody for president and a president for everybody, because right now we have a president for the 1%. He's not working for you. He's not working for me. He's not working for probably anybody that's ever going to see what we're doing right now. He's working for his few friends.
Yeah, man.
And everybody else but him. He is not a president for Americans. He's a president for the elite, the very few ultra-wealthy elite, and everybody else.
Especially if they're white males.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's who he's a president for. And I want to see a president that represents all of us.
I dig, man.
And
so your job is to go to the young cats and say, get off the sideline.
I've already started.
Otherwise, you're done. It's not. What is the alternative if they don't get off the sidelines?
Well, they can watch the world slowly die, which it will. The current pace of humanity is unsustainable. This is my route. We're on an unsustainable path. We're using up the planet at such a rate that we may have a few hundred more years, maybe a few thousand, before the planet is done. We've used it up. It's going to be a wasted hulk, and we won't be here anymore. So humanity, to survive, needs to change the way we deal with stuff, the way we evolve our minds to do this, because our problem is greed, essentially, selfishness. Everybody is out for themselves. And as long as that's the driving force of most of humanity, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Everybody trying to beat out the other guy to use up the resources faster than the next guy, to get more than their share. America's the worst. We use a third of the world's resources that are consumed every year. The world as a whole, in a little over 100 years, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, maybe it's a couple hundred years, have used, according to the reports I've read, about a third of the world's usable resources in a couple hundred years. We've been here for what, a couple 100,000 years?
Right.
So in 1/1000th of the time that we've been on the planet, we've used up a third of what there is, and we're using it up faster all the time. You don't have to be a mathematician or a genius of any kind to understand that cannot go on. It's just, the stuff just isn't there. At a certain point, soon you come to, oh, there's nothing left except all of us 8 billion of us here with nothing. And that will collapse.
Well, and with climate change as well, you're going to have a lot of displacement.
And it's humanity's mindset that drives that.
Right. Well, Hendrik said when the power of love overtakes the love of power, the world will know peace. But that was in '67.
Yes, and he was right. He was exactly right. That's a perfect way to put it.
Greed and power.
I've been playing with a band for the last 3 years, a normal bean band. He's now calls it...
He's down in Eugene, right?
Yes, he calls it the Love Family Band.
Beautiful.
And this is what he preaches all the time. It's love, love, love. All this other stuff is destructive. So we got to evolve ourselves where our main thrust is love of each other. That's why I play with him. Because his head's in the right place. His methodology has pissed a lot of people off. He has a lot of problems because of this, because he's so enthusiastic that he overreaches, but he's overreaching in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean...
And that's how you do it. You overreach and then you drag people kicking and screaming along behind you into the future, because it's the only way we can do it.
It's evolution.
It's evolution.
Let's just, before we wrap here with George Walker here at this just beautiful...
Wrap? We barely started.
I know, you go for 2 hours.
We'll do this again.
Were, just break it down here for the thesis for the book, were the Merry Pranksters, or at least individual Merry Pranksters, mentors for members of the Grateful Dead?
Was that a question?
Yes, mentors, mentorship.
I think it was mutual. I think that we taught them stuff. I think they taught us.
What did you
stuff.
teach them? Magic?
Well, we taught them that they could perform high on acid.
That's... So you're telling me that they were not in, they didn't know what they weren't hip to acid before the Pranksters.
They probably knew about it, and they'd probably, some of them, if not all of them.
But playing on it.
But actual playing on it and doing it regularly as your thing, we introduced them to that.
Were the Pranksters responsible for improv for members, learning about improvisation?
We didn't put it in those terms, but I think so.
What terms would you put it in?
Well, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
Garcia, for certain, was into improvisation musically.
Yeah.
He listened to Coltrane. I mean,
endless hours. You told me endless train.
Hours.
And Ornette, probably, right?
Ornette Coleman, yes. If you listen to what he plays,
I hear
and listen to Coltrane, you say, Jerry plays it on a guitar in a rock and roll mode. Coltrane plays it on a saxophone in jazz mode, but it's the same thing.
It's an anguish cry of freedom and love.
And freedom and love, and just the interest in how you can express all this stuff musically, how you can get everything out through what you do. Because Garcia was really committed musician. You rarely saw him that he wasn't playing with the
He just
guitar.
wanted to play the music. He didn't understand all the deification stuff. He just wanted to play.
No, he wasn't very comfortable with that.
No, he hated it.
I think I don't know that he hated it, but I don't think he was comfortable with it. I think it's
what I mean by improv is like...
drove him to bad drugs.
I agree. No, but I mean he was insulating himself. But the thing is that
Exactly.
I'm serious. I'm being like, did the members of the Grateful Dead become inspired by the fact that you guys often created something? The Pranksters created something out of nothing.
Probably, yeah.
Because Mason Williams told me that Kesey said it's easy for someone to be clever, but it's really the most important thing is to be magical. And I feel like you taught, the LSD is part of it, but I think you guys taught them magic.
Kesey said on more than one occasion, he said, in essence, I'm a magician.
Right.
He said, all these other things that I do, writing novels, performing plays, all this artwork, all this other stuff, these are just tools in my bag of magic tricks.
Tools for my chest.
These are the things I pull out of my hat. These are the rabbits, the novels, the acid tests, all this stuff. These are my rabbits. He says, I'm a magician. He says, it's about tweaking the mind. It's about getting people out of their mental comfort zone to where they're saying, wow, what was that? And then they start questioning. If we don't ever question, we don't ever change. We have to question our reality, or we're not going to change.
Do you feel that like your sometimes life can shake you into that mode, and sometimes right? I mean, did you have right? I mean, but I guess you have to be aware when that door opens because you can miss it.
Well, yeah. Not only that, though, you have to get to the point where if the door ain't open, you kick it open.
Damn, Walker.
No, really.
Did you kick it open? Yeah.
Hell yeah. First you have to realize that there's a door. Then you have to realize that the door can open.
Right.
And then you have to realize that, hey, if that door opens, I can go through it. And then you have to realize the door ain't always going to open, and you have to open it. You got to kick it open with whatever it takes.
Damn right, dude.
Go
Damn right.
Sometimes it takes a battering ram, but you got to blast through that door.
Or a thunder machine.
Yeah, a thunder machine. We're going to build another thunder machine and incorporate it into the bus.
You know, as we sign off, I want you to just riff Cassidy style, the way that you and Hassett. I mean, because you have it, man. And in some ways, Neil Cassidy is more. I don't know what the right word is. His gumption and his.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
A year after Cassidy died, he started appearing to me in my dreams.
He did.
Visions.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. And he gave me very specific instructions. The first time, it was very simple. He said, carry on the work. And then there was this kind of communication with his spirit. And I was questioning him, well, what do you mean? And he said, you know what the work is. It's what I've been doing. He had told me in the last year of his life that he felt closer to me than anybody he had ever known.
You lived with him for a minute, right? Over the last year, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. We traveled to Mexico for half a year together, and very extensively, and really, that was when I really became conscious of who he really was, what was really behind him, in what he was doing. He opened up to me in ways that were different from just him performing.
Sure.
When we first met him, he was performing as Dean Moriarty. He was that was his character, and because he was expected to do that. And then finally I got him as who he was. And then I started dealing with him just as him. And
he would come back to you in dreams.
And he respected that. And that was a year after he died that he started appearing to me. And he was like, well, I'll give it to you like this. I talked to Ginsberg about this a year or two after it started happening. And Alan just kind of nodded his head with a smile, and he said, yes, there's a name for that. And he said, when that happened, he said, Neil was laying his mantle on you. And I realized, yes, that's it, Alan, exactly what happened. I can feel it because it transformed me. I became, in a way, I became a part of Cassidy. Cassidy became a part of me. And this is why I can do this
exactly.
thing that I do
Exactly.
because I can just bring him in. Come on, Neil, be here. And he's here. And so that's how that began happening. So it's like this. All this stuff that we've done, everything, the music, the dance, the painting of stuff, the bus, the acid tests, the plays, the trips to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the trip to England, all the stuff that we did.
Twister.
All the parlor games.
Spit in the Ocean.
Yeah. Spit in the Ocean. It's all about the same thing. It's all about evolving our consciousness because it's the only way we can save the planet.
Bless you, George Walker, and best of luck to you as farther continues on down the road. Keep it happening.
Thank you, Jake. It's always a pleasure to see you. It's always a privilege to be involved with what you're doing. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to go farther down the road with us once we get this baby on the road.
Dude, you can tie me to the roof. I'm there, baby.
No, we'll give you
Keezy lives. Cassidy lives. That's it for now.
We'll give you a ride on the roof when we get the roof done.
Love always. We'll see you later.
Love you too, man.